go. There we go. Hi, I'm Petra Monaco from the Rebel's Den, and with me today I have Martha, who is an author, and I'm so excited to talk to you about your work, how you got started. So Jess, you kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more.
Okay, I'm Martha Anderson, Martha Duke Anderson. I had to put the Duke back in there because there's another Martha named Martha Anderson and another author named Martha Anderson. So I worked at an area agency on aging for 30 years, and I did a lot of writing there, and of course lots of it was contracts and
Mhm.
and grants and things like that. But I started my first book a couple of years after my husband passed away, and also my grandmother had passed before that, and I just got started thinking about who's going to tell their stories. And so I did a book and have the modern theme going up here, but then I've worked into it some of those old stories of theirs. And I took an early retirement 3 years ago, um, so that I could do some writing and playing and traveling. Um, I had for many, many years just done nothing, seemed like, for just working and taking care of others. My husband, and then my father, and then my mother um, passed away, and I had taken care of them. It seemed like the fray that was always going on at work, I just wasn't into it quite as much, and things were not quite as dramatic and not quite as pressing. And after a while, I thought, I should just go. And she was 94 years old when she passed, and the others here are just models. But um, I put together the book. I had the young lady; she's 25 years old in the book, and the girl. uh, some of the old family stories from way back when. The book is set in 2000 and early 2001, and um, so she was born in 1903, so she's quite old. And she's telling those old stories, and the girl really gets into it. And then she gets a job working at an area agency on aging, of course, because that's where I worked. And but she is around other older folks, and they're telling little snippets about their past. And the girl learns that she doesn't know it all after all,
Mm.
and that she is. Anyway, she learns to love and respect older folks. And of course, when she moved in, she didn't know anything about cooking. And so she starts first watching Gran, and then she's writing down some notes and recipes. And so there's 19 recipes in the book as well,
Oh, very cool.
and southern ones, of course. and she's got to have a love interest, so I gave her the two fellas, and that's got to get worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the way that one goes. And there is a book two and a book three of Golden Threads. Golden Threads shining bright, and Golden Threads shine forever. And I was happily working on both of those um, when I was interrupted by
Isn't that just how that works?
this book.
That is how that works.
This book, On the River's Edge, Rape, Revenge, and Redemption. And so, the first book is kind of like Hallmark and to go to bed with at night. And so one some fellow would hear that her husband had died, and before you know it, she would have a visit, and they would talk, and within just a very short while, a week, maybe two, she'd be married again
Oh.
and move. And so that's kind of the way it went. From and they didn't like her very much. They were not living in the house. They had were grown and moved away. And she got in touch with the daughter, the one who just really didn't like her, I think was the oldest, and she came down to the house with the sheriff and the coroner, and um, uh, they went outside, and the woman told her, "You're no longer needed here. You can get your things and go." And so she said, "I thought I'd wait until after the funeral." And the daughter said, "You're not welcome at the funeral. You won't be going. Get your things and go now." And so she went, and you know how a long time ago they had those kind of really small cardboardish suitcases with the little handle on the top?
Yes.
Yeah. That kind of suitcase you can picture. And she went and she started putting her clothes in it. And that's all she had, just a few clothes, and put the clothes in it. And back then, the woman's name was not on the property. It was not on a bank account. If she went to town to buy groceries, then she went to the store and charged it, and the husband went by and paid for it, you know, ever so often. And so she didn't have a penny to her name. And she just had her little suitcase, and she's crying, and the woman ushers her to the front door. She'd been standing over her as she's putting this stuff in the suitcase, and she ushers her to the front door and slams it behind her. And so she goes to the road, and she turns walking towards the next town, which was about 10 miles away. And when she got there, then she called one of her daughters, and she went and picked her up. And so, and that's the way it was. And I, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
But and you don't think about stuff like that very much, but I had that in my mind. And when I got home from going to Fort Rucker, I had gone in the afternoon. We were going to see the afternoon show, and I was planning when I got home to write up that story to go in book 2 of Golden Threads. And when I got on the highway going towards Fort Rucker, which is about a half hour away, I saw something, and it sparked a little memory, and all of this stuff just kind of came flooding in. I had the Aunt Lizzie thing on my mind about women not having any rights at all.
Yeah.
I had in my mind, I guess, in my consciousness about the rape kits not being processed.
Hits you at the weirdest times, and like
Yeah.
shifting direction of what you're like, this is the book I'm writing, and like, no, this is the one I'm going to write instead.
Right.
I love that.
So I had I got there, and I'm thinking rape, huh? And I'm like, ooh. I'm like, really? You want me to write that? I don't know. It was definitely outside of my comfort zone. It's not something I'd ever thought I was going to write about. I thought that I would only ever write about aging or older people, something with older people in it, And at the time, my website title was Aging Through Golden Glasses, and it didn't have anything to do with rape. And so my website's being redone right now, and I got the name of it changed to MarthaDukeAnderson.com. And there's also my Facebook page, which is Martha Duke Anderson Books. But anyway, the website should be redone in a couple of weeks, I'm hoping. But I'm like, oh, that's just And I thought to start with, I got home that night, and I sat down at the computer and started writing all the stuff that had come to me on the way there and on the way back. And I wrote and wrote and wrote, and then after that, I wrote the Aunt Lizzie story, and went to bed about 5:30 that morning. And and there was something about that seemed urgent, like it just really needed to be done. And so I put everything else aside, and I started writing that book. And there's things in it. I don't know why I wrote it the way I wrote it. it just is the way it happened. I thought this 17-year-old girl was going to be the main character when I started. This sheriff said, no, 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 it's me. I'm the main character. He is a retired Marine. When the book starts, he's in his second term as sheriff. I should read the blurb.
That's all right.
Okay. On the River's Edge, Rape, Revenge, and Redemption. River Rock, nestled on the Muskogee River's edge like a snake in a curvy flower bed, is home to Sheriff Jack Raymer. When a 17-year-old girl is raped, the retired Marine turned sheriff appears indifferent. Hardened and calloused from his military service, he buried his sensitivity long ago. After the sheriff and a self-interested Alabama senator encounter the rapist, their attitudes change drastically. On the River's Edge takes on the far-reaching effects of rape on its victims and everyone they touch. Each discovers things within themselves, things they never thought possible, the dark, the ugly, the evil, as well as the tender, sweet, and good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated, not just by the story. Like, I think I'm gonna buy this book.
Yay!
But also by the fact, like, and that's what I try to share with my community. It's like when you have an idea that you can't let go of, is to take that inspired action and just go with it. Just let it unfold how it folds, because first of all, you don't know what the outcome is. Like, you went into territory that you're not necessarily familiar with, and it made you uncomfortable, but yet you still sat down and ended up writing a book that's probably a little challenging for some people that may have been rape survivors like myself, or even somebody else, and just kind of take that on. So I appreciate that. But also from a creative standpoint, I think it's very
that's in it. So
we don't want to reveal too much because we want people to buy it.
Right. And I thought about recently, because see, that was when all that came in. It was July the 14th of last year, and I released it on January the 3rd. An author from Alabama just wrote this book when Alabama has just passed the most repressive abortion
I think it's definitely divine timing. Like, you were meant to write that book without question. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you were the one that was to write that. And who knew this was going to be published during a time where it feels like we're taking so many steps back instead of moving forward. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you. I'm probably going to hit that buy button after we're done talking.
Yay!
Yay! But we briefly talked just for a minute before. Creatives, no matter what field they're in, tend to get stuck, whether it be writer's block, creative block, I don't care what you want to call it. And you're like, I don't really get that, which is really like, how do you do that? If there is something that stops you, like, how do you get into the motion of doing the work?
Oh, well, once I start, I'm good. But
how do you get started?
But in between, like when I finished On the River's Edge, I was like, ooh, goodness. And of course, you have to do all that marketing and that kind of stuff. And so that's a reason not to go writing something else right away, because you have to do all that initial marketing. And of course, that never stops. You continue on. But there's a little more of it right to start with. And I have people all the time who have read Golden Threads who are asking me, when am I getting book 2? I mean, on and on and on. All the time I hear that, when am I getting book 2? And I say, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But I'm not, there was, of course, I was interrupted by On the River's Edge, and then I kind of got back to Golden Threads. But there were weeks there that I didn't write anything after finishing. I didn't write much after finishing On the River's Edge. took a lot out of me. I think it was difficult, and I have I attend two writers groups. One is in Dothan, Alabama, which is where I live, and one is the next town over, Ozark, Alabama. And so if I'm going to read something there, it's either got to be something I already wrote or else I have to write something new. So that kind of helps because, I mean,
accountability.
Right. It gives me a little bit of accountability, and also, like one of the groups, they have a general theme that they a prompt for you to write with, but they don't mind if I don't use that because I feel like if I'm going to write something, it needs to be on my book, so or whatever I'm working on, my work in progress. So I will write something from that and then take it to read, and of course I get an immediate feedback on that, and they look for errors and things like that and make suggestions, and having that gives me something that kind of prompts me on, because that would get me in front of the computer to write something. And
I love that. I really do. There's I'm a huge fan of accountability. I offer it as well, and I have an accountability partner, and it's probably one of those. And you're doing it in a group too, where you get immediate feedback, which can feel really, really scary. I don't know that I could pull that off quite well, but it's a very useful tool to have a support group, accountability group, whatever you like to call it, to be like, hey, this is what I'm working on. So I can get better at it, or just to kind of be around other people that are similar or likewise doing that. So that's a great way to get through if you're stuck, is to be around people.
And with
go ahead.
With the feedback, with that, in addition to just the group stuff, a tip for other writers who are just getting started. I was so naive when I started, and I thought, okay, I'm going to send my book to an editor, and then after the editor does what they do, it'll be ready to publish. And I thought that everything was perfect after that. The editor's been through it.
Yeah.
And I learned differently. And like with this last book, of course, we all go through our own book gazillions of times, but you get to where you can't see your errors and things that need to be cut and things like that. But you go through it a lot, and then I sent it out to an editor. She went through it. She sent back to me. I made changes. I sent back to her. She went through it again. She made more changes. I did it again, and then I had my beta readers, and I sent it out to all of them. At least two of them have done editing as well, but they're good friends of mine, and so two of them really good with editing, and then there were probably 5 others who also read it, and it was so interesting because all of them found something wrong. And some made other suggestions, and then and what was interesting though is that they all found different things, different errors, and I'm like, wow, how interesting that they all find different things. And like one fella, he's so funny. He would make comments on his, like, would the senator really be driving a pickup truck?
But that's really, really beautiful, because I hope that we have writers watching this that are start writing, and this is a really useful tip for them, is to have an editor, have multiple people read your book. I've self-published self-help books, and trust me, I know there's mistakes in there. I know, but it is what it is. But when you're writing fiction, it's a different kind of a beast, right? It's a different modality than nonfiction, I think.
Well, I came out feeling so much better about this book, so much more confident about it, because so many people had read it and they were good readers, you know, and I feel real confident about the errors or the lack of. I hope there's no more. If anybody finds any, let me know.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that there's not any after all of that.
I'm an avid reader, so I read a ton of books, and there's every now and again a book where I'm like, oh. And English is my second language, so grammar I might not always get right away, but spelling, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But there's, you can have 5, 10, 20 people review your book, and it may still be mistaken. That's just the nature of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I realize that, and you might find some in there. If you do, let me know.
Yeah, and it's great that you're open to that feedback, because a lot of people aren't actually open to that feedback too. They're not open to that criticism. Hey, I found a mistake. This word is spelled wrong. And it's just be open to the feedback. Be open to the criticism when somebody finds something that maybe is spelled wrong or grammatically doesn't make sense, to just be like, okay, I can accept that. That is how you learn, how you grow.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Excuse me, you've got a tickle in my throat. So grateful that you're part of this conversation, just sharing some of this really good stuff about your story and where you find your inspiration from, but also some of these really useful tools other people could use. Mm-hmm. Your website is not quite finished, so we know that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They can connect with you on Facebook, and then your books are on Amazon, correct?
That's right. And if you in the search field, if you put Martha Duke Anderson, Duke, in the search field, both of those books will come up.
All right, fantastic. I will be linking them, so it'll make it a lot easier for people to find them, so I don't have to search. But again, I thank you for your time and being part of this conversation. What is your next book? Are you going to finish the series?
Yes, I have. I have one chapter that I brought with me here, but I have the book 2 and book 3 of the Golden Threads trilogy that I'm working on. I already have quite a lot in both of them. Have the ending written, and
Wow.
And I had been at a writers' conference, and an agent there talked with me about doing this caregiver book, and so I have a caregiver book that's in progress. That's about 3/4 of the way. I want to finish it as well, and I have a fun series that's on the back burner, and I write stuff about it. From time to time. I've written some on it since finishing On the River's Edge because it always makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And I go places with one of my friends, and she and I always laugh well together. And little things come up, and I think, yeah, that needs to go in that book. The series is just going to be a fun series, probably novella size, maybe 45,000, 50 at the most, and it's about these 2 older ladies who travel together and get into all sorts of mischief. And
I love it. I love that. Oh, I'm gonna keep tap on that too. Before we wrap it up, I like that you have multiple projects going on. I do that. I have a couple of books in the works myself, but I'm also do artwork, so I'm always switching gears on like what I'm working on, and I think some of that is necessary so that we stay in that creative flow, because if you focus on one thing for too long, you could get burned out, and then you get stuck, and then you're like, oh my god, I didn't finish this. So y'all, this is the thing, multiple projects.
Right. And that one makes me laugh, and I really needed to laugh a lot after On the River's Edge. And just little things happen. Like I went to this restaurant with my girlfriend for lunch, and it has most of the people go in the back door, and it has this kind of an inclined ramp that zigzags back and forth on the way to the serving line. because it's a very popular place and lots of people go there. And during that lunchtime, it's always very busy. There's always a line. So I was there with her, and I was turned facing her as I was moving up that ramp, and this man behind me was there, probably with his wife, and I had moved up a little bit, and he didn't realize I had moved up. He turned around, and somehow or another his hand landed on my butt. and and he was embarrassed. He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to touch you." And I don't know why I said it. It just flew out of my mouth. I couldn't stop it. I said, "That's okay. My butt don't get touched all that often anyway."
Oh,
and and see, we were kind of right at about the place where you turn and go back, and so there was people there facing this way, and there was a cluster there, and then there was another line coming this way, and I didn't say it real loud or anything, but somehow or another 3 different levels of people heard it, and everybody burst out laughing. And so later I got to say, well, I told my friend, I said, I don't know why I said such a thing to that man. I never used to would have said it. I think I'm losing my inhibitions. And 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 later I wrote her, I said, you know what? I'm going to let that man touch Callista's Philpott's butt in my book.
I love it. That's beautiful.
So I've already written it up, and
that's fantastic. I love that. I like taking real life experiences and turning that into a writing piece. Well, Martha, thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.